It is a Tuesday in July, 1984, and you are 9 years old. You have been outside since breakfast, and your mother does not know where you are. The garden hose in the neighbor's yard is closer than going inside, so you drink from it, and the water tastes like warm rubber in August. A screen door bangs somewhere down the block. Your knees are grass-stained, and your shins are a map of scabs you are proud of. A melted Mr. Freeze wrapper is stuck to your palm, and the streetlights are the only clock that matters. Nobody on that street is thinking about their weight because nobody needs to. Pull the class photo from that year and you will not find one child who looks like the kids in a class photo now. Something happened in the 20 years after, and it was not a collapse of Canadian willpower. It was 9 specific changes, most of them decided in boardrooms and planning offices, and not one of them decided by you. Start with the food, not the amount of it, what it was made of. In your grandmother's kitchen, supper came from things that rotted, potatoes that sprouted eyes if you left them in the bag, bread gone hard by Thursday, a roast that had been an animal that week. You could smell what was cooking from the driveway, onions in a pan or nothing at all, and nothing meant you waited. Somewhere between then and now, the plate got swapped. Today, just under half of every calorie a Canadian eats comes from ultra-processed food, not cooked, formulated, built in a plant from starches and oils and additives, tuned to hit the exact spot on your tongue where you lose the ability to stop. That share has more than doubled in 70 years, and it lands hardest on the youngest. Canadian kids between 9 and 13 now get 57% of their energy from this stuff, day in and day out. The detail that should bother you sits underneath all of it. The longer your family has lived in Canada, the worse the plate gets. People born here eat more ultra-processed food than the immigrants who arrived to join them. Whatever this is, we grew it at home. None of it looked like a decision. It looked like convenience, one box at a time. That was the first change, and it made everyone after it easier. Then the portions grew, and nobody sent a memo. A bottle of pop in 1984 held 6.5 ounces, 85 calories, 1 serving, and it felt like plenty. The bottle you buy today holds 20 ounces, the same drink, 3 times the sugar, and we still call it one. A bagel back then measured 3 inches across. Now it runs 6, carrying more than double the calories it used to. A cheeseburger that came in around 330 calories in the 70s can clear 1,000 today, and nobody thinks to call it large. The movie popcorn, the restaurant plate, the muffin the size of a fist. Everything on offer quietly doubled while the price barely moved, and value became the excuse for all of it. The strangest proof is in the cars. As the drinks got bigger, automakers quietly widened the cup holders to fit them. The cookbooks went the other way. Open a copy of Joy of Cooking from the 60s, and the same recipe feeds more people than the newer edition claims, because we decided a portion should be bigger and rewrote the book to match. You did not order more. The plate under the food got wider, the glass got taller, and the number that felt normal crept up a little every year until normal was double. Nobody chose that. We just stopped noticing. Number 2, there used to be an unspoken rule about eating out. It was a treat, a birthday, a road trip, the last day of school. In 1970, families here spent about a quarter of their food money on meals made outside the home. By the mid-90s, it was closer to 40 cents on the dollar, and the reason sits on every corner in this country. Tim Hortons opened its 500th store in 1991. By its 25th birthday, it was pouring 145 million cups of coffee a year and putting up a new location roughly every week. Timbits, the double-double, the drive-through window, the whole ritual of it. We ate there, sure. Then we built our mornings around it. For a lot of us, the first job was behind that counter, and the first coffee we ever loved came in a paper cup with a rolled rim. And it came at a cost most people never saw. The chain grew so fast, it drove the little independent donut shops under, the ones with the cracked vinyl stools and an owner who knew your dad. By the time it was finished, Canada had more donut shops per person than any country on earth. The treat became the routine. The routine became the drive-thru you sit in 3 mornings a week without thinking about it. That is change number 3, and it arrived one red and white sign at a time. Snacking is the one that hides in plain sight because it barely feels like a change. Ask anyone who grew up in the 50s, and the answer is the same. You ate at meals. Between meals you waited, and if you whined about it, you were told supper was at 6. There was no drawer of little bags. The snack aisle had not been invented yet. Then the aisle appeared, a whole wall of the grocery store, built for eating, standing up, in the car, in front of the set, at 10 at night, and it pointed itself squarely at the young. The lunchbox tells the story on its own. A sandwich and an apple in 1985 became a tray of stackable crackers, a pouch of sugared drink, and a foil packet of something engineered to be fun. Canadian children now pull as much as 1/3 of their daily energy from snacks alone, food eaten outside any meal, most of it made in a plant. Grazing got sold to us as freedom. No more rigid rules, no more waiting, eat whenever the mood takes you. What it meant, in practice, was that the body never got the long, empty stretch between meals it had run on for the entire history of the species. We stopped being hungry, ever. Comfort was change number 4, and comfort was exactly how they sold it. In 1992, a cookie taught the whole continent a lesson about trust. The message coming out of every magazine and doctor's office was simple. Fat is the enemy. Cut the fat and you cut the problem. So the food companies did, and Nabisco led with a green box called Snackwells. Low fat, right there on the label. It became the best-selling cookie in America almost overnight, and it moved in Canada too, flying off the shelf to people who believed they were doing the right thing. The box left one thing off. When you pull the fat out of a cookie, you lose the flavor, so you pour in sugar to make up for it. The virtuous low-fat treat carried nearly the same calories as the regular one, and people ate more of them because the label handed out permission. Researchers named the pattern after the brand, the Snackwell effect. Eat more of anything that calls itself healthy. Be careful here, because the real story is messier than the internet version. People never truly cut their fat, and the craze burned out inside a decade. But the lesson held. For years, we trusted a label over a plate, and the label was written by the people selling the food. Change number 5 was a promise printed on a box, and the promise broke. While the rest of the country looked the other way, one province noticed who the ads were really for. Picture Saturday morning in the 80s. Cartoons, and between them, a wall of commercials built by grown professionals to make a 6-year-old want the cereal, then the toy, then the burger with the playground bolted to the side. It worked, because it was engineered to work. You can probably still hum a couple of those jingles, and that is the whole point. They were built to outlast the childhood they were sold into. In 1980, Quebec did something no government on earth had tried. It banned advertising aimed at children under 13. All of it. Toys, fast food, the lot. The industry hauled the law into court and fought it for years, and in 1989, the Supreme Court of Canada looked hard at it and let it stand, ruling that children were a group worth protecting. Then the results came in and settled the argument, Researchers found the ban cut somewhere between 13 and 18 billion fast food calories a year in that one province. French-speaking young adults raised under it turned out 38% less likely to buy fast food than French-speaking young adults across the river in Ontario, where the ads never stopped. Quebec ran the experiment for the rest of us. Where the ads got switched off, the kids ate less. Where they kept running, the kids kept eating. That is number 6, the only change a government tried to stop, and living proof that stopping it worked. The television was always in the corner, then it multiplied and it followed us everywhere. For most of the century, a Canadian home got a handful of channels and they signed off at night. Cable rewrote the math. Suddenly, there was always something on at every hour, and then came the console wired into the set, and after that, the computer, and the screen stopped, being a thing in the corner and became the thing you did. The remote control did something small and permanent. It took away the last reason to stand up. You no longer cross the room to change the channel, and that tiny surrender multiplied across a decade of evenings, added up to a body that never moved after supper. Add up the hours, and it is staggering. Canadian kids now spend 62% of their waking lives sitting still, not resting, sitting, watching, scrolling, playing something that moves so they do not have to. Go back to that street from 1984. Part of the reason it was full of children is that the house had nothing to offer them. 4 channels and a rerun could not compete with the ravine and the road hockey net. The moment the indoors got brighter than the outdoors emptied. The house simply got more interesting than the yard, and the kids came inside on their own and stayed. Number 7. And it is still running in your hand right now. Your grandfather's job wore out his body. Yours wears out your head. For generations, the Canadian economy ran on muscle. The mill, the line, the farm, the loading dock. A man could eat an enormous supper because he had spent the day earning it with his back. Then the mills closed and the lines went overseas, and the work that replaced them happened sitting down in front of a screen under a fluorescent light. The house changed alongside it. The dishwasher, the second car, the ride-on mower, the drive-through bank. Every year, one more small effort got engineered out of ordinary life, and each one arrived looking like a gift. You took the elevator because it was right there. A button rolled the car window down. The garage door lifted itself while you sat and watched. Little surrenders, all of them, everyone dressed up as the future arriving on schedule. The kitchen went quiet too. 2 parents working meant nobody had 2 free hours at 5 o'clock to cook from scratch. So the microwave took the job, and the boxed supper stopped being lazy and started being survival. None of this was a choice you could watch yourself make. It was a whole society rebuilt around the idea that moving your body was a problem to be solved. We solved it. Change number 8 is 1,000 conveniences added up, every one of them sold to us as progress. Which brings us back to that street. The clearest measure of everything that changed is easy to miss. It is the sidewalk outside of school at 20 to 9 in the morning. When you were small, walking to school was simply how you got there. Ask the parents of the 80s, and 58% of them walked or biked as kids. Their own children, 28%. In a single generation, we cut it in half. Half the children who would have walked to school are now belted into a back seat before they are fully awake. A scientist named Mark Tremblay spent years watching that number fall and finally said it flat out. A drop of 50% in one generation is enormous by any measure. In the Greater Toronto area, you can see it move in the data. Walking to school among 11 to 13-year-olds sliding down through the 80s and 90s, while the count of kids getting driven doubled. Think about what that did to the street. The schools stayed exactly where they had always been, tucked into the neighborhoods. What changed was the fear and the hurry. Two parents rushing a 900-meter trip made quicker by car. So the children who used to fill the sidewalks are inside minivans now, buckled in, watching a screen, arriving without having moved a muscle. The streetlights still come on at dusk. There's just nobody out there to see them. That is number 9, and it is the one you feel in your chest, because it is the childhood we grew up in, switched off. None of these 9 were yours. Not the plate, not the portion, not the empty sidewalk. They were settled in offices and boardrooms and handed down to us as normal, and we grew up inside the result without ever being asked. So here's the one worth sitting with. What did your street sound like at dusk back then? And when did you last hear one sound like that? If any of this landed, send it to the person you played road hockey with, the one who drank from the same hose. They lived it too, and they will know exactly which streetlight was theirs. This is the kind of thing that only stays real if the people who were there keep saying it out loud. And if you want to keep these stories from vanishing, the small Canadian ones the big channels never bother with, subscribe and stay with us. Less to grow a number, and more to make sure somebody still remembers what we had before it was quietly taken apart. One convenient decision at a time.